This podcast is for SEO professionals, and each week, with the help of our wonderful guests, we discuss the important stuff that actually affects our careers and progression, but sadly often doesn't get talked about. You know, the invaluable soft and interpersonal skills that are often taken for granted, such as the skills we need for listening, time management, communication, and more. We also talk about the big issues that affect us and our careers, such as burnout, imposter syndrome, self-belief, saying no, plus other big issues and obstacles. With this podcast, we want to share knowledge on topics that unlock our listeners' true potential and enhance not only their careers, but all parts of their lives. So, are you ready to prioritize your own personal growth and career development? Then let's crack on with this week's episode. Hello, and a very warm welcome to another episode of the SEO Mindset podcast, where your hosts are myself, Sarah McDowell, and the ever so fabulous Tazmin Suleman, with episodes going out every single Thursday. This is the first episode of season 13, and what a cracking season we have planned for you all. Not only have we got some great topics lined up, and of course a selection of awesome guests that we can't wait to share with you, but there is also the live podcast. We'll be recording an episode in front of a live audience the night before Brighton SEO, and it will be published on our feed as well as Search with Candour, which is hosted by our wonderful friend Jack Chambers Ward, who we collaborate with for this event. If you feel overwhelmed by that ever-growing SEO to-do list, then this episode is for you. I get it. I really, really do. This week, me and Tazmin talk about prioritization and how it can help you to get organized, stay on track, and ensuring you're doing the work that matters most, whilst also keeping everyone happy, you know, your managers, clients, other team members as well. Reminder about what you can do if you enjoy the podcast and enjoy what me and Tazmin are doing. You can buy us a coffee. You can give us a donation. So we're set up on Buy Me a Coffee, which allows you to give us a one-off donation. If you fancy doing that, head on over to the show notes, and a big shout out to everyone who has done that already. And an ask to follow, subscribe the podcast wherever you are listening to us. That way you get notified whenever new podcast episodes are ready for you to listen. And while you're there, why not give us a cheeky review? Are you ready for the first episode of season 13? Of course you are, so let's crack on. Hi Tazmin, I feel like I've got a little bit of a husky voice going on.
Tell me more, Sarah.
I was doing a bit of karaoke yesterday, wasn't I?
Oh wow! So you've got a tired voice. I've got a slightly dehydrated voice because I'm fasting. I tried so hard. I've had coconut water, chia seed water, just to try and make it happen. This is what we have to go through. I'm sure we'll be fine.
I'm sure we'll be fine. It just makes me laugh if our regular listeners are all like, oh, Tazmin and Sarah's voices are sounding a little deeper or a little bit raspy. What's going on there?
Oh dear. We toyed with the idea of making this a whispering podcast, but then quickly dismissed that. Nuts. Never even heard of anything like it.
I think I'd get far too excited halfway through and the whisper would just get louder and louder.
Probably. Anyway, I'm excited to be recording nonetheless.
Me too. And this week we are talking about a topic that is probably very relatable to a lot in the SEO industry. And the title of the episode is Prioritizing SEO Tasks to Go from Overwhelm to Organised. So I thought this would be a really good topic because I don't know about other people listening to this podcast, but being in SEO, it's feeling quite overwhelming. And that is because of lots of different reasons. Like, obviously, the forever changing landscape. There's been a lot of talk around AI and get my teeth in, Tazmin, LLMs, changing how things are happening, high expectation, never ending tasks. If we're working agency side, you've got your client expectations. Even if you're in-house, the expectations that you've got from people higher and your team. So yeah, SEO is feeling overwhelming. Would you agree?
I would, and I would add to that people who are freelancing, because freelancers are feeling the need to become more and more visible, build their brand. Brands, like everyone's talking about, build your brand. And you see everyone else doing whatever they're doing. You think, oh no, I should be doing that. And it adds to that list of things that you feel that you should be doing. So I'm definitely hearing that from lots of clients. I'm feeling that myself because that's what a lot of coaches are doing, right? So this whatever what was already a really heavy to-do list that we were struggling to manage now seems to become, you know, bigger and heavier.
And it's hard as well, isn't it? Because from my experience, there's a lot of people in the SEO industry that I look up to, and you see them posting on their social media. So I'm very active on LinkedIn, and I see all the stuff that my peers are getting up to. And yeah, that adds the pressure as well. And it's not just from a freelancing point of view, but even if you're in house, because anyone can work on their personal brand, anyone can be posting and showing all the wonderful stuff they're doing. But yeah, with all of with everything that we've covered and everything that we've talked about so far, it's no wonder that it feels overwhelming. And I suppose the first bit is sort of being aware of that and being like, okay, it's okay to admit that things are overwhelming. It's okay to be like, do you know what? I'm struggling right now, or the overwhelm is a bit too much. And rather than burying your head in the sand and just hoping it will go away and that you can push your feelings down deep, it's much better to address it, isn't it? And be like, okay, this is happening. And I just want to run through some ways that you can tell if you are feeling overwhelmed, because you might be listening to this episode so far and be like, oh, am I overwhelmed? I'm not sure. But there are different signs that we can be looking out for so we can be aware of this. First up is emotional signs. So, emotional signs that you might be struggling. So, this is where you're feeling constantly behind. This is where you're struggling with decision fatigue. So, every decision, even like really menial or the really small decisions, seem really big and seem like a really hard thing to decide on. You dread opening emails, or you dread opening your Slack channel or your Teams channel or whatever internal messaging platform that you use within your company. You feel easily frustrated. So this one gets to me a lot. And I know that I'm feeling overwhelmed if, like, I don't know, I'm trying to like do something on my laptop and I click the wrong thing, and that gets easily frustrated. Or you try and make yourself a cuppa and you forget to put the kettle on and you get frustrated with that situation. So first things first is your emotional signs. And is there anything that you'd like to add to that?
Um, I think what you were saying is it's really important to be aware that you are and admit that you are feeling overwhelmed. and do something about it. I would add to that, it's very important to be aware that you are not the only one. There's nothing wrong with you. You're not broken if you're feeling all of these things. Most people are feeling all of those things. So it's nothing to be ashamed of or think, oh no, I haven't got my stuff together. Because everyone else looks like they've got it together. They haven't. Everyone is trying to, what's the analogy? Put the octopus in the string bag.
I have never heard that analogy before, but
But
I
if you
like
can
it.
try and imagine, you're trying to put this octopus and you think, oh no, this bit's coming out. And oh no, that bit's coming out. And oh, why did I choose a string bag? Because the string bag is life and the octopus is all the stuff you got to do. So
The
it's okay.
the a- the analogy that I know is where you see a really graceful swan and they just look like they're
Ah,
gliding, but then under the
yeah,
water, their like feet are going like really hectic. That's another
yeah,
one that I like to think about. But you're
yeah,
right,
yeah,
and yeah, so it's okay, and you're not failing. And it's not that you're admitting defeat by saying that you're overwhelmed. It's just about being aware. And if by me going through some emotional signs and you relate to some of them, that's okay to like open up and talk to people about it. And remember, like, have such a love-hate relationship with social media because everyone just shows their best self. So, of course, you're not going to be seeing people struggling. I mean, there are some very brave people out there who do post on social media when they're struggling, and I have so much respect. And I'm like, yes, like, because we need more of that. But just because you don't see it, it doesn't mean that it's not happening. And all you need to do is have a conversation, a one-to-one conversation with someone that you know. And if you ask them, okay, I'm feeling this way, how are you feeling? 9 times out of 10, people are going to be in the same boat as you.
yeah, yeah. You asked about emotional signs for feeling overwhelmed. For me, so I love food. I love cooking. I don't often get takeaways or go out for a meal because we just don't. But when we do get a takeaway, if I am struggling to decide what we're going to get, I don't want to make that decision. I want someone else to take care of it. I know that I'm up to here. I cannot even decide between pizza and peri peri chicken. Like somebody else, figure it out, deal with it. I don't want to.
I could totally relate to that because, especially if you feel like you've had like a highly pressured week or even a day where you've had a lot of responsibilities or you've had to make a lot of decisions, if then, like in your personal life, you and your partner trying to decide what to have for food, and you're just like, you make the decision, I don't want to. I hear you.
Yeah. Or the other one, Tasmin, should we have this or that? I don't know, orange juice or pineapple juice. And I say orange juice. Like I've made that decision, and it's been hard for me to make that decision. Uh, and then they say, "Are you sure?" No, don't ask me that. I just struggled to make the first decision.
I'm with you.
That
I'm with
that
you. Just, yeah, yeah. Okay, so there's some emotional signs, and maybe as we've been speaking through the emotional signs, maybe there's some other ones that have come a bit apparent for you, our listeners, as you're listening to this episode. There's also physical signs that we can be aware of. So things like having headaches or migraines, trouble sleeping and switching off, skipping meals. So this is a big one for me. If I'm feeling really overwhelmed, I feel like I can't even find the time to have lunch or have a break or have a cup of tea. Do you know what I mean? So you're skipping your meals, you're skipping drinking. You end up, or on the other hand, you rely on caffeine or sugar to like highly energize you because you feel like you haven't got anything left to give. So And because you're not sleeping and you can't switch off, you need that caffeine or you need that sugar to help you. Or what you find, and this was one that I really relate to, is because you're constantly on all the time, as soon as you sit down, or for me, as soon as I'm a little horizontal, if I'm too overwhelmed, I'll just crash. I'll conk out. Like so many times we've had to pause watching something on Netflix because as soon as I've like switched my brain off or my body is in like a more of a relaxed position, it just gets switched off.
For me, I don't rely on caffeine. I'm drinking less and less. I get a real sense of panic, as if time is running out. Heart rate increases. I get sweaty, especially as we're getting closer to that deadline, whatever that deadline is. So that's how it shows up in my life.
Yeah, yeah. I can relate to that as well. I can relate to that. Everything feels like panicked or rushed, or like you need to get something done. And because you're in that headspace, mistakes happen then, don't they? Which is fine. I'm not saying that we can't make mistakes. We are human. But when you're in that high pressured, highly rushed kind of mindset where you just need to get stuff done, your attention to detail ends up sort of like slipping, doesn't it, a little bit?
Yeah, I think that, and I snap. And most people who know me know that I'm quite a calm person. So
Very
somebody
calm.
else, very
You are the Zen queen. Who is it that always calls you the Zen queen? Amina.
Amina from Vixen, she
Vix.
does.
Yeah, Vixen Digital.
And to the outsider, they might not see it as snapping. They might think, oh, it's quite normal because there's this rage inside me. Um, but I know that I've snapped. And later on, when I go to that person and I apologize, they've got no idea what I'm talking about. But I know inside I'm going, oh, for God's sake, can't you just get a move on? Like, just get a move on. Do you not know how much stuff I've got to do?
Yeah, I've been in that same position. So obviously, me and my partner Tash, there's times where we both work at home, and if I'm feeling overwhelmed in my to-do list and I just want to crack on, and she just comes in wanting to have a little chit chat, I can be a little short and just be like, I can't give you what you need right now. I can't have this conversation because I'm too stressed about getting this thing done. But I do try and always apologize. So if I ever feel like my behavior hasn't been how I want it to be, or I've been a bit short, or I've not treated someone the way that I always try and say, look, I'm really sorry. And most of the time, like you say, they haven't taken it a particular way and they've just moved on. And I think that's another sense of that when you're overwhelmed is that you end up overthinking, over analyzing, and you're just constantly apologizing because you feel like you can't keep up, and you can't keep up with your day-to-day work tasks, and then obviously that's then going to leak into your personal life, isn't it? Because then I'm not keeping up, I'm not being the partner I want to be, I'm not being the mother daughter I want to be, not being the parent I want to be, not being the friend I want to be. So it's all a massive, it gets a bit messy, I suppose, doesn't it?
You know who I do have a really good relationship with this is with my daughter. So, for context, I have adult children. And if she rings me and says, oh, and she's, excited about seeing something, I'm able to say to her, just before you get into that, can I ask you, is this urgent or can it wait? Because I'm feeling a bit overwhelmed and I've got this, and this to do. And she's very good at either saying, look, it's really urgent, here is the summary, or no, this can wait. So having the ability to have those conversations is really helpful.
Yes, definitely, definitely. Okay, so other signs as well. So we've gone through all the emotional signs, gone through all the physical signs. there are some other signs that I want to bring to people's attention. Rewriting or constantly checking your to-do list and nothing getting done. I This one is a big one for me. I feel like you want to add to that, Tazmin.
Or feeling so overwhelmed you don't even write the to-do list, and then that's awful because it sticks in your head, and that just makes the whole thing worse.
Definitely. Definitely. Other ones are working longer but achieving less.
Yeah.
So if you're in this state of overwhelm, you're not going to be working at your true capacity, I suppose. And you're not always, like, we are humans, you're not always going to be able to give 100%. There'll be days where you're working 30 or 40%, for example, but for that day that's your 100%. But when you've got this overwhelm, you just, it can feel like you're working for hours but you're not really achieving anything, which ends up feeling quite frustrating. And then another thing is struggling to focus. So you can't really get into the zone of deep work, or where you're just fully consumed by a task or a project, and you probably procrastinate, and the big tasks or the big projects that you need to do, you don't want to do them because they just feel too big and you can't get your head into that space. And what happens then is, like, you're getting constantly interrupted by Slack, emails, notifications, people talking to you, LinkedIn. So it all ends up a bit of a messy, entwined, interrupting. You just can't focus, which is never good fun, is it?
No, and I think all of these things that you've talked about, we recognize them as being distractions that are going to make the whole overwhelm thing worse. But in order to have that clear runway of this is what I've got to do and this is how I'm going to do it without the notifications, that takes effort. That takes effort, that takes discipline. And we can start off with the best of intentions, but somehow during that traveling, we lose
Mm.
the ability to stay consistent with, I'm going to turn notifications off, I'm going to do this and that. And then it slowly, well, not slowly, but very quickly becomes overwhelming. And then when you're feeling overwhelmed, you then cannot, or find it very difficult to say, oh, I know what I need to do. I need to take a step back. I need to do this. I need to take back that to get back on track. And it becomes this downward spiral that goes very fast.
And I think as well, something that came to mind as you were talking then about not being able to switch off your notifications. For me, that is because you're worried. Like, if you switch off your notifications, you're going to miss a really important message from your boss, your client, or even your loved one, because you just can't switch off, in this state of panic, I suppose, this overwhelm. So everything's going to be feeling like, I'm being pulled in all these different directions. And all you want to do is just have 2 hours locked away in a quiet room to be able to focus on something, but you just can't.
Yeah.
And it's really tricky. So obviously, this first half, because we're going to take a short break now, but this first half is just about getting you aware of these feelings. And like we said at the beginning, it's okay to admit that you're struggling. It's okay to admit that you're feeling overwhelmed. And that is the first step, because after the break, we're going to talk about how you can prioritize. So, how you can use prioritization to help with overwhelm. But you won't be able to do this until you've done the first step of acceptance and be like, do you know what? I'm struggling. It's hard. I am feeling overwhelmed. So, yeah, it's just giving you the confidence to be able to do that.
Yeah. And it's normal, accepting that it's normal and there's nothing wrong with you.
100%. 100%. We're all messy humans. It's hard. Like, not only have you got pressures from work, you've got pressures from like your personal life and your different relationships that you've got going on, there's other things as well. Like the world is a bit crazy right now, and that's just a whole different kettle of fish, isn't it? So yeah, of course you're going to feel overwhelmed, and it's okay. You're not alone. We're all in this together. So yeah, just it's okay to admit it. Right, Tazmin, let's take that short break, let people digest this information, and then when we come back with part two, we're going to give our wonderful listeners a load of ways that we can prioritize to hopefully get over this overwhelm. Does that sound good?
Excellent. Looking forward to it. Hi, Tazmin here. Are you looking to take your career to the next level? Be more visible, earn more, but also take care of your well-being and have work-life harmony? Well, I can help you because I'm offering you a free 30-minute consultancy call. Together we can go through where you want to be and how to get there. Simply click on the link in the show notes, fill in a form, and I'll get back to you.
Sarah here, just quickly popping on to let you know about how you can support the podcast, how you can support me and Tazmin. So first things first, we are set up on Buy Me a Coffee, which means you can give us a one-off donation. Thank you to everyone who has done that already. If you fancy doing that, the link is in the show notes and we'd be very much appreciative. And another way is help us spread the word. Get more people to know about the podcast. Tell your colleagues, friends, loved ones, hey, even your pets. Next time you're listening to an episode and you think someone would really love it, find the link and why not share it with them? We are back for part two. Tazmin, are you still with us?
Yes, I am. I've not fallen asleep. Oh dear.
Good.
For context,
Back in the
everyone.
room.
Yeah, I'm back in the room. For context, I'm fasting, so timings are very, very odd right now.
I can imagine. I imagine it's similar to jet lag, maybe, or
Maybe. I mean, we're fortunate that we don't have young children, so we can nap during the day or sleep in and catch up on sleep. But yes, when I was sleep deprived, young mother, it just felt like constant jet lag. But yeah, I am here and raring to go.
here and present, people. Lovely. So, first half of this episode, we were talking about what is overwhelm and ways that it comes out. So, how you know that you may be struggling with overwhelm. This half is all about giving you practical strategies with prioritization. So, we're going to be looking specifically at how prioritization can help with overwhelm. Now, before I get into that, I just want to signpost you to a previous episode. So, back in November 2023, Tazmin, this podcast has been going for some time, hasn't it?
Nearly 3 years.
But back in November 2023, I had the lovely Jess Redmond Easterbrook on the podcast who discussed overwhelm, and she was given sort of more general tips on how you can deal with overwhelm. So I'll make sure that I'll link to that episode in the show notes because this one is specifically about prioritization. So if you want to listen to another episode about overwhelm and other strategies, I definitely urge you to give that episode a listen to. Tazmin, do you want to know some strategies of prioritization?
Go for it. Always willing to learn something new.
Wonderful. So first things first, are you a fan of the 80-20 rule?
I am. I think I've sort of adapted to myself and my own way of working. But yeah, let's hear about it again. It's always good to refresh our minds.
So the way that I like to think about 80-20 rule is focusing on 20% of tasks that drive 80% of results. So this is definitely going to help with overwhelm because it helps you sort of ignore, because when you're in SEO, that to-do list of everything that you need to do is long, and it's going to keep growing, and it's going to feel like it's never ending. However, if you can take a step back and apply the 80/20 rule, so if you can look at all of those tasks, all of those things that you need to do, and be like, okay, what is the 20% of tasks here that is going to drive the 80% of results? And you don't have to do this alone. If you want to do that alone, great. If you feel confident, do that. But if you've got a team, or if you've got people above you, and you are going to have people above you unless you're the founder or I was going to say top dog. I don't know why top dog came in mind. Yeah, let's move on from that. But you're always going to have someone above that that you can work with, or maybe there is someone in the industry that you know that you can ask, or communities, right? So me and Tazmin were both part of the Women in Tech SEO community that's founded by Arij Abu Ali. Maybe there's someone in there that you can work with, or maybe you've got budget which allows you to bring a consultant on to help you. So, yeah, if you can crack the 80/20 rule, it will help you cut out all those tasks that are taking up time, that aren't really driving you the results, and instead laser focus on, okay, what are those tasks that I need to do to drive the most results? Does that make sense?
It does. It does. The needle that they talk about. The move the needle.
Yes, moving that needle, moving that needle. Second strategy is impact versus effort. So, a quick way that you can deal with your overwhelm and start to feel good is focusing on tasks that also have high impact and low effort. Yeah. So when you're looking at that list of tasks and you're applying that 80/20 rule, also have a think, okay, is there any on here that are easier wins, quick wins, or low effort? Because that's going to help you, especially if you're in a state of overwhelm, because if you can start crossing off those tasks that are easier to do or lower effort, then it's a momentum thing, isn't it? And as soon as you start seeing results and you can start telling people in your company or your clients, if you're agency side, about those results, the better that's going to be. Another thing that you can do is data driven decision making. So a lot of us in the SEO industry are very data focused. So you can use analytics, search trends, what's going on in your company to help you focus on the most valuable tasks. Another one, which is very important, and I should have probably started with this one first, is aligning SEO goals with business goals. So getting into the headspace of not every ranking improvement matters, but conversions do, or whatever is important to your business, whatever your overall business goals are, because that's going to help with your prioritization, because you can be like, the reason why I'm doing these tasks and not the other task is because they align with this business goal. And then as soon as you're speaking the language of people within your business, then they're going to understand, and it's going to help you again laser focus, because you're like, okay, what should I be focusing on that is truly in line with the overall business goals? A fan of automating and delegation. So at the beginning of the podcast, I did say that the forever changing landscape can add to overwhelm. And a big thing at the moment is everyone's talking about AI and LLMs, but can you look to use AI and other tools to help you work more efficiently? Can you find better processes. So for me, I'm using AI more and more. And the way that I use it is if I'm doing a task that feels long, or if there's a task that's quite repetitive, I'm like, okay, can I use AI? And as I'm talking about this, I've just thought about another episode to signpost you all to, is when I had Jordan Cooney on the podcast talking about embracing AI and developing your skills. So definitely go and check that episode out as well. You don't have to use AI in tools. There's other things as well. Outsourcing. Is there people within your team that you can outsource to? Or again, is there budget? Can you use external help to help you with your tasks? You don't always have to work solo. Can you collaborate? Can you work with a department? So you might be feeling highly pressured. You might be feeling you've got all of this stuff to do and there's not enough hours in the day. And you never know, there might be another department that has more time, or there might be other people within the business that can help you because they're not as, they don't have as much to do, so to speak. Have you got anything to add before I carry on with a few more?
So I do, and going back to what you were saying about prioritization. So what I've been using more and more is really old school stuff. When I said to you before that sometimes I struggle to get my to-do list done, what I've been doing now is using a whiteboard and a whiteboard marker to write down my to-do list. And for some reason, that just feels less pressure than writing it down with pen or paper. If there's anyone out there who's got some deep knowledge on why I find that easier, I'd love to know. But so I write it all down, and then I will cross off anything that doesn't have anything to do with my goals. So it's using that 80-20 thing, but in a slightly different way. So I know what my goals are. I know what my KPIs are. Are the things on that list going to help me get towards those? No, right. They just wipe off rather than cross off. It just makes it feel lighter for me. I can see it disappearing in front of my very own eyes. And then I look at those and work out which is the thing that's going to get me the most results, success, whatever I want to call it. And what can I do to start that off? So there will be a project that is big and it feels overwhelming, but you know that it's super useful for you. It's going to help you achieve your goals. What is the task? And I call it a momentum driver task, that once you start, it will get everything flowing. So, for example, Sarah and I record these podcasts, and because of me and my travels, we've been having to pre-record them quite early. And in my head, it's, oh no, got to get the podcasts out. We're running out of time, blah, 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 blah. It feels heavy. But the act of setting the date, right, we will record on this day at that time, just makes all of the other tasks happen. So I know I've got to plan an episode, whatever it is that we need to do. So what is the momentum driver that will get that thing done? Another thing is to, when you look at your to-do list, and I use, there's this woman on LinkedIn. If you're not following her and you're into productivity, please do. Her name is Amanda Goetz. And she used to be a tennis player, I believe. And she classifies her tasks into offense tasks and defense tasks. So, offense tasks are things like building that slide deck, writing that pitch, all of the things that are going to help you achieve your goals. Defense tasks are responding to someone's emails. That is you helping them get their stuff done. And there needs to be a balance. And going on with your prioritization that theme, she does her offense stuff early in the morning before anyone has woken up. And she spends 2 to 3 hours doing that deep work because there's no one pinging her. And it means that she has started her day off right and she's already made progress before anyone else has woken up. Now, I know that doesn't work for everyone. It's working for me currently because I get up at like 4 in the morning for breakfast and then I don't go to sleep for a few hours and nobody's bothering me at 5 in the morning. So last Sunday, I worked from 5 till 10 and it was like I'd done 2 days worth of work in 5 hours.
Amazing. Amazing. And I suppose you can still take that concept. So because I'm not an early riser. I am going to be honest and be like, I would love to be able to get up at the crack of dawn and be able to do work before everyone else is pinging me, messaging me, wanting me. But you can still achieve that just by dedicating, okay, in the mornings from 9 till 12, I'm not going to look at my emails. I'm going to turn my notifications off. I'm not going to look at LinkedIn. And it's having that discipline of 9 till 12 is me time. That is where I'm doing my deep work. And I can also chat to Tash. So obviously I said earlier in this episode that me and Tash both work from home. But if she's aware, okay, babe, you can't disturb me between 9 and 12. Obviously, if an emergency happens, then that's a different kettle of fish. But it's about sort of having those expectations and your boundaries of being like, no, please, can you not disturb me between these hours because this is my work? And then once you've got that done, you've got the rest of the day to catch up on your emails, catch up on your messages and all of that. So you can still do the same concept. It's just having a different strategy in place. And talking about that does bring me to my other point of with prioritization, it's really important to communicate expectations and goal settings with your clients, your bosses, whoever you need to, because most of the time, you've just got to communicate. So if you've been asked to do something and you're worried that you're not going to get it done in the time because you've already got other things on, it's okay to communicate that to your clients or your bosses because they don't know what they don't know. So if you just say yes and you take it on, they'll be like, oh, okay, Sarah's got this, she's fine. Whereas if you've communicated, and as long as you've got a decent boss and you've got decent clients, then they'll be respectful. If you communicate and be like, I can't do this thing right now, but that is because I'm doing this thing. Do you know what I mean? If you do have any issues with your boss or clients being unrealistic of your expectations, then maybe that's a red flag. But that's another topic for another day. But yeah, and also learning to say no or not yet. You've got to be able to do this. So if you are feeling a bit overwhelmed or tasks are getting on top of you and you are being asked to do non-essential SEO jobs or even non-essential jobs that have got nothing to do with SEO, but it's because of other things within your company or your clients, or maybe a loved one needs you, you can say no. You're not letting anyone down. If you say yes and you really can't, you end up letting yourself down, which is just going to end up in this vicious cycle of overwhelm, not being able to keep up and feeling a certain way. So, yeah, it's okay to say no. It's okay to say not yet and communicate. Would you agree?
Yeah, and it reminds me of my wonderful friend Yvonne Bowen, who had the classic line when she worked for a number of directors, and when they said, "Yvonne, can you do this?" and she'd say, "I'd love to do that. What would you like me not to do?" So
Mm.
she wasn't saying no. She wasn't saying not yet. She was saying, absolutely, I'll do it. But there's all of this other stuff. What would you like me not to do? And I think one thing I would like to add to it, I've noticed more and more people are not putting everything they need to get done on their to do list. and then they do the main things and then find that they've run out of time to do the other things that they didn't put on their to-do list. So an example of this is, supposing you're working on projects, but the normal reporting has to get done, whatever it is, your wheels on the bus type tasks aren't going on your to-do list. You're doing all of that and you're wondering, why don't I have time for that project work? Well, because you didn't put down everything you needed to do. If you're
Mm.
freelancing, and a big part of freelancing, as you and I know, is going to events, networking, and that might not feel like work, but it doesn't have to feel like work for it to take up time. And then you forget that, 2 days of that week, I'm not going to be here. Therefore, I'm going to have to do 5 days of work in three. How's that going to happen? So it again is being really clear about what you need to get done.
And that is something that I need to get better at because I struggle. So, fortunately, I'm in a position where I get to go to lots of wonderful events and conferences. And most of the times I'm there moderating or speaking or helping or doing something. And I forget to see that as work. And what I've got into the terrible habit of doing is still squeezing in my client work around being at this conference. Now, that's not going to be helpful for anyone because going to conferences, networking, and even like I'm going more to networking events as well to get my brand out there and to talk and make connections. But I need to learn to see that as work. And again, it's just about communication. So, for example, we've got Brighton SEO coming up in a few weeks, and we've got the live podcast, which is very exciting. But something that I will need to do is make sure that I look ahead, look at my projects, look at my clients. And if there's anything that I can't get done that week, that's okay. But I just need to communicate that with my clients. I just need to say, just as a heads up, I'm going to be out this week. It I and just set their expectations. Like if there's something that I can't get done that week that has to get done, what is the workaround? Can I get it done beforehand? Or can we have an agreement where I do it the week after? So always, it's okay to like invest in yourself, go to networking events, go to conferences, attend these things, but you have to see them as work. And you need to communicate, I can't get this thing done right now because I'm going to be doing this thing. And it's about that communication. And I love your point as well about making sure that all your tasks are on your to-do list, because something that I find tricky is I'm fortunate because I've got a lot of client work, which is wonderful. But with the live podcast coming up, there's lots of tasks that I need to get done for that. Or the SEO Mindset podcast, right? There's tasks that have to get done for that. And I'm getting better at putting them into my to-do list because, yeah, like there'll be times where I'll be working till late and it's because I've not factored in that time for all my tasks, like you have said. So, yeah.
Yeah, and a lot of my clients are women who have families, and one of the things that I notice is they do not put in the to-do things that onto their list, which are non-work, and then wonder why they're
Mm,
exhausted at the end of the day. Um, and I try and remind them that looking after yourself, looking after a home, looking after young ones is such a valuable thing that you are doing. Do not underestimate the importance of that. And that takes time and that takes effort, and that is also valuable. So don't just base your self worth and your value on your SEO work, on your project work. That is also really critical. But if you're not putting that as part of, I also need to do this, this, and
mm,
this, then you can, again, underestimate how much time you have.
definitely. Definitely. Well, Tasmin, look at the time. We are
We
We're at time. We're over time. We've overrun.
overtime.
over time. But I thoroughly enjoyed that conversation. And do you know what? Even just talking about this, because I'm not going to lie, I am feeling a bit overwhelmed right now with lots of different things that's going on in my life, both personally, but also um, when it comes to like work and career and freelancing. But I feel like just having this conversation has like lifted a little bit, like lifted that pressure. So thank you, Tazmin, because this feels like it's been therapeutic for me.
Oh, wonderful. There's lots of good topics. Thank you for choosing that topic. Really good.
Thank you. And now I'm just having a bit of a stretch. Everyone, stretch with me. It feels good. Well, that is us. So, Tazmin, I need to wrap this episode up. Thank you very much for tuning in to another episode of the SEO Mindset podcast. Hopefully, you have found this conversation helpful and you are armed with a load of strategies that you can implement to help you deal with overwhelm. And I definitely urge you to check out the podcast episodes that we've mentioned in this episode again. So that is in the show notes. If you like what me and Tazmin are doing, if you want to support us, there's plenty of ways, isn't there, Tazmin? Would you like to say one or two?
Well, you could send us a lovely donation via the Buy Me a Coffee link. And Sarah and I do use that money to treat ourselves when we're at Brighton. So it's very much appreciated. And you pick another one.
I'm going to ask people to share our podcast. So, of course, make sure that you are following and subscribing and even giving us a cheeky 5-star review. Doesn't have to be 5-star. We will take 4. No, any review would be lovely. But also, word of mouth is a really good way to support the podcast that you're listening to. So, the next time you listen to an episode or the next time you're talking to someone and you're like, yes, they need to listen to the SEO mindset, please do mention us. Send them a link to your favorite episode or just send them a link to our website, the SEO mindset.co.uk. Hopefully, that is the right URL. I'm now second guessing myself. Just Google us and share us because that would be very appreciative.
And if you know anybody who's overwhelmed, this is the ideal episode to share with.
Definitely. Right. Goodbye, everyone. Take care of yourselves and until next time.
Take care, everyone.